Hi friends, welcome back to On Location. We're here filming in Cranbrook. The show is produced with the support of TELUS STORYHIVE. Tucked in the heart of the Kootenays, St. Eugene is more than just a resort. It's a powerful symbol of reclamation and healing. Once the site of a residential school, the building now stands as a place of cultural education, community gathering and renewal led by the Ktunaxa Nation. Today, the resort respectfully honors the past while creating space by learning, connection, and growth. I'm here to speak with the individuals who carry that vision forward through storytelling, tourism, and truth. Hello, friends. Welcome back to On Location. We are here in Cranbrook, BC. We're at the Ktunaxa Interpretive Centre at the St. Eugene Resort on land that holds profound history, pain, strength, and healing. This building once operated as a residential school, but through the leadership and vision of the Ktunaxa Nation, it has been reclaimed and transformed into a place of cultural revitalization and spiritual restoration. Joining me now is Leanna, who will be digging deep into the history and as well as the work that we're doing here. Can you please introduce yourself, Leanna?
Kisukyukit hu gaklik Leanna Gravel hu gachigaki akin kumsas nuklet sak yakit ak nuklet hu initanacha. Good day, everyone. It's good to see you. My name is Leanna Gravel. I come from Tobacco Plains. I use both of the traditional names for my community, and I am Ktunaxa.
Thank you so much for welcoming us. And I came here earlier this morning. It is quite an interesting feeling as you walk in and you're walking in through the doors and seeing photos of all these children. And now I get the opportunity to sit down with you and talk about the history and now how it's being used as a place for truth and reconciliation, but also healing. So tell us about the Interpretive Centre, which is part of the Indigenous-owned St. Eugene Resort as it stands today.
The Ktunaxa Interpretive Centre, we opened up not too long after we opened up as a hotel, and it was always to have that space and that place to tell who we are as Ktunaxa people, as well as our residential school story, and about reclamation and reclaiming this building.
Can you tell us a bit about your role since you have been here and some of the healing and the educational work that you've been able to do? I noticed earlier there were children coming here from the school, and Isaac, who is an elder, and he is also a residential school survivor, was giving them a tour. Can you tell us about the work that is ongoing since you started here?
Since the inception of the program pre-pandemic, we decided that we wanted to expand our programming. So we always provided tours to groups coming through, mainly schools, business, industry, anybody who wanted to work with the Ktunaxa people so they would know our history, as well as our residential school story and understanding our people and where they come from and you know, the impacts from residential school. And going forward as part of that with expansion of our programming, it was to start looking at truth and reconciliation. And what that means, because when we talk about reconciliation, we're not talking about reconciliation just from residential school. We're talking about reconciliation for the last 150 years since contact, since colonization. We're talking about reconciliation of that. So knowing our full stories, our history, because there's not many history books written about us as Ktunaxa people. And we need to start telling our story and telling our truths, and then also providing an experience for visitors to come and learn about who we are. So we offer truth and reconciliation sessions, cross-cultural sessions for groups, business, industry. We are facilitators of the blanket exercise, as well as we provide cultural activities, so some beading activities, team building, teepee raising, traditional games. These are just a few of the things that we offer, and all of our programming is customizable to whatever group is coming in and what they want to learn, because some people know some, but to know that full history of everything that happened.
So some of these exercises, would you say, take place here or outside on this property, or you can also go to them as well?
We can do all three of those options. We can provide them here on site as well as outside, because that's where some of our activities have to take place, as well as we can travel to whatever group wants us to come in, whatever they're wanting.
Now, before we dive deeper into the history of this place, of St. Eugene, I'd love to begin with you. Can you share a little bit about how your role and, this being a residential school, do you have family who were here, who came to the residential school when it was a residential school here?
Both my parents went to school here. Both my parents had different experiences. My mom's was fairly decent. My father's not so much, and I only get the stories of them many times he ran away, how far he got when he ran away, who he ran away with, who brought him back when he ran away, but he never talked about the punishment he received when he came back. When we provide tours, that's what we always explain. Everybody's experience was different. It just depended on who the nuns and the priests were when they went to school here. And that time period when they went to school here, because it changed from the beginning when it opened in 1912 to when it closed in 1970. So those different nuns and priests that came through, it changed and changed the children's experiences.
And your father, you mentioned, doesn't really want to go so deep into that, or he just keeps that to himself?
He keeps that to himself.
Okay. What does it mean to you personally to be part of the work here, and especially on land that holds so much ancestral and community significance?
For me, I was young on council when we first started building this. For me, even though both my parents went to residential school, I really didn't understand the full impact of what they had experienced or what they went through when this was a residential school. I didn't understand the history of it. So for me, when we started developing this from a residential school into a resort and each of those stages, I started to understand more of some of the impacts, what they went through, and more people started to share more of their stories. So it's not about me just sharing about my parents, but I share little stories that I've gotten from my aunts, my uncles, with their permission. I share those stories with whoever we're providing a tour to, whether it's a school, whether it's a business or industry. I share a little bit about them and what their experiences were like when they went here. So it's also, even though they're not telling their stories, I'm providing that story for them. I'm allowing it to still be told and still be heard without them actually doing it. We often hear the phrase, the land remembers. This building and this land carry memory of both trauma and tremendous resilience for those who might be visiting or learning about this place for the first time, like I am. How would you describe what it feels like to walk these grounds and what you hope people begin to understand when they do? One of the main things that we really want people to understand is the resiliency of the students who went here. Going through that and then coming out still a better people and with their strength, their language, their culture still with them. And about reclamation, because after after the school doors were closed and this sat vacant, and then we turned it into a hotel, it's really about that reclamation. Going back to Mary Paul's words, within these walls, they took their language and their culture. It's within these walls they'll get it back, and it meant different things to different people. It was about going in and reclaiming that language and that culture that we weren't allowed to do here. So that's the base of our programming. So being able to, because all our facilitators are former residential school survivors, thrivers, they don't like the word survivors, warriors. They're our facilitators. So they're the ones who do the programming. So it's their start to their healing, as well as that reclamation, going in here and doing in this building what they weren't allowed to do. and reclaiming that back. So we host many workshops, language and culture workshops, as well as activities throughout the year.
Tell me a bit about this space here. So we're sitting here in front of a teepee, and can you tell us like what the experience is like when individuals come here? And I'm very glad that, first of all, it is an Indigenous owned resort. There's a spa, there's a casino, there's a golf course. It's a beautiful property, like on with this river and mountains surrounding it. And then this can be part of the learning. So when people are visiting, you're supporting an Indigenous owned business, and then you come here and you understand the history behind it, even though, yes, it has all this darkness behind in the history.
So when visitors come here, we start with our story of creation. So our story of creation would take many days to tell, because it not only tells of the creation of ⱡkamnin people, it tells of the creation of ⱡkamnin, all things. In our story of creation, there are two main characters. One of them is ⱡkamnin. Now ⱡkamnin, he is the chief of all of the animals. And he heard that there was a prophecy that one day there would be ⱡkamnin, there would be people. And so in preparation for that, he started to ask the animals, the plants, ⱡkamnin, all things, what they would be for when people came. And some of them stood up and they said, you know, when the people come, they can eat my meat. They can use my horns for tools, for weapons, my bones. They can use my hide for clothing. Just all these different things. So they started, and when they were being asked what they would be for when people came, they were also being given their names and their roles and responsibilities. And so that they could all live in a well-managed society. And they all had to be respectful of themselves and of each other. So having respect for each other so that they could live in this world. And then there was this other character, his name was Ⱡkamnin. Now ⱡkamnin, he was a large water monster. And he decided he did not want to follow these rules anymore. He wanted to do what he wanted, when he wanted, eat what he wanted, however much he wanted, without being told how to do that. And so he started to do that, and this caused an imbalance in the animals' world, and it started to upset them. So they decided that they had to form a hunting party and hunt down ⱡkamnin. And while they were meeting to discuss how they were going to take care of ⱡkamnin, there were these two little birds. They were playing in the water, and ⱡkamnin came up and he ate them. And they were Yamakpa's little sisters. And this enraged the animals. And so they formed the hunting party and went to go look for ⱡkamnin. And they heard that he was up in the Columbia Lake. So when he was spotted, the animals went to go to where he was, and the chase was on. Now at this time, the Columbia and the Kootenay River were one waterway. And so they started on their way down here towards the community here. And on their way down, one of the animals that was part of the hunting party was ⱡkamnin. Now ⱡkamnin, he is our trickster, he is a coyote. And we learn what not to do from ⱡkamnin. And when they were on their way down, ⱡkamnin, he fell into the water and he needed to be rescued. And so he started yelling, "Samanashun, Samanashun, help me, help me." And all of a sudden he hears this small voice say, "Grab onto me." And he starts looking around and he sees this green reed reaching over. And so he grabs onto that reed and it pulls him to safety. And this reed, we call it wasa. And it sounds very similar to a community up the way called Wasa. And so after Wasa rescued ⱡkamnin, he told Wesa, I am going to make you pretty. I'm going to make you different than the other plants. And he painted black and white rings on Wesa, so he was different. So while Skinkoots gets a bad rap for doing stupid things, he also did some good for us. So he ensured, like he gave Wesa its stripes. He also made sure that we all had tlawia, our huckleberries, and our skomo berries. He made sure that we all had those as well. So there is some good and bad that Skinkoots did for us. So after Skinkoots was rescued, the hunting party continued on its way down, chasing after Yumunik. And then it came on down here towards and then it went on down towards Yakit Aknokliat and past Kakach Turtle and over to Akswak Libby, and then it continued over to Ⱡkamnin, and then up towards Yakinuki, over and around towards Junwakinmitskakas, and over to Aknukluk near Golden, over towards Giaknukliat, and then back towards past Akisknuk, and then back into the Columbia Lake. And this completed the circle, the cycle. And just when they think they would have Yumuna cornered, he would escape into a different part of the waterway. And there was a wise one, his name was Gikum. And Gikum was sitting on a riverbank, and he was watching this as they would go by. He would watch Yumunik swim by, and then he'd watch the hunting party go running after him. And then again, watch Yumunik swim by and the hunting party go after him. And he finally stops Nachmutsen and he says, "You're wasting your time. Why not use your size and your strength?" Because Nachmutsen, he was a giant, and he was so tall, if he stood up, his head would touch the ceiling of the sky. So he tells him, why not use your size and your strength, and with one sweep of your arm, block the river from flowing into the lake. And Nachmutsen, he thought about this, and so the next time Yumunik swam into the Columbia Lake, Nachmutsen blocked him from escaping, and they had him cornered. And then it had to be decided who would have the honor, who would get to kill Yumunik, and that honor was given to Yamakbat, because as I said, the last two that he'd eaten was his little sisters. So Yamakbat killed Yumunik and then butchered him and distributed all his meat to all of the animals. And this is something that our youth still do today when they have their first kill. They give the meat away. They don't take any for themselves. They give it to the elders and those in need.
And at what age do they do that?
Depending on whenever they go for their first hunt, and so it can range anywhere from 8 all the way even into adults. It just depends on when they have their first hunt. And then they distribute all that meat to the people versus themselves. So after all the meat was distributed to all of the animals, all that was left was the ribs and the innards. And the birds came in and they took those ribs and they ate those ribs and they dropped them throughout the area. And that is what is our hoodoos today. And then Nachmutsen, he took the white swim bladder, the black ingredient from the liver and the roe, and he broke them into small pieces and he scattered them in all directions, declaring this will be the various races of people. And with the blood on his hands, he reached down to wipe his hands and he let that blood drop where it may, and he said, this will be the Ktunaxa. They will be small in numbers, but they will be mighty. Now Nachmutsen, he realized he had created Aksmaknik, he had created people. He had fulfilled the prophecy, and in all his excitement, he jumped up and he stood up and he hit his head on the ceiling of the sky, knocking himself dead. His feet go up towards Yashiki and the Yellowhead Pass, and his head is all the way down in Yellowstone National Park, and his body forms the Rocky Mountains. So what you may know as the Rocky Mountains, we call Nakhmutsin.
Nakhmutsin.
Yeah. And so after that, the animals went above and they became the spirit keepers of the people. And then the people were given rules and laws and covenants that they had to abide by, not to take more than what they needed, so that they could all live in a well-balanced world, how to look after each other, respect each other. And these are our aknamustiches, our laws and covenants that were provided to us, so that we could all live in this well-balanced world together. And that's our creation story.
Thank you for sharing that.
Our collective creation story is a combination of all of our creation stories in each of our 4 Ktunaxa and our 2 Ktunaxa communities in the States. And so the impacts of the borders. So after we tell our story of creation, we bring you through the Interpretive Centre and kind of give you a little bit of a brief introduction to our 14,000 plus year history. So how we lived before contact and then into contact, the items that we have here, some of them are very old and things that were used many years ago. They're made from the land, from the animals, different parts, like as all things said what they would be when people came, what parts of them could be used for medicine, for tools and weapons, for food, for shelter, for our clothing, what parts of them could be used so that nothing went to waste. And that's how innovative and creative our people were, by living off the land and using those items to create weapons, tools, shelters, even down to our saddles. So just all of these things that make us unique as Ktunaxa people. So, making of our yaksumir, our canoe, our sturgeon nose canoe, it's fashioned after the sturgeon nose fish. And how that's made. The teepee behind us, this is our tule teepee, or our danash teepee, or cattail teepee. And this here, how we used from the land those cattails, this is mainly used by our lower Kootenai communities. But, these are our first mobile homes. We could pack them up and go and move from camp to camp. At this teepee, it was very warm in the winter, very cool in the summer. We also have a traditional hide cover teepee as well. And it would take 8 to 10 elk hides to make that teepee for a family. So just all of these different things and how they use them.
When visitors come to the Interpretive Centre, some with knowledge of residential schools, others with very little, perhaps if they're not Canadian, or what stories and what experience do you want them to have and take away from their visit?
First and foremost, the main thing with coming into the Interpretive Centre is about education, because our stories aren't told enough in the greater public. So learning, or even unlearning what they learned in school, because some of these things are, it is a part of our curriculum. However, it's only surface level. Yeah, we don't go into the schools don't go into the deeper stuff. So we go into a little bit. I didn't
learn anything.
And it depends on the groups. So each province is also different in what their curriculum is. BC, it is part of the curriculum. So you do have to learn that. And I know, like many the students who come here, they already have a pretty good idea when they come in, some of the things. But after we take them through our Interpretive Centre, we go through a little bit of our timeline and some of the impacts. And then we show them a video, depending on age group, a video called Survivors of the Red Brick School, which was done by former residential school survivors who went to school here in the 90s, telling their stories when our stories weren't yet being believed. But that was their start of their healing journey, to tell their story. Before we turned it into a hotel, so they had to come here one more time and learn about that, to talk about that, to talk about their experience, and to also to start that healing journey. As many of our people are on many different levels of their healing journeys, and we all know healing is not linear. There's many forwards, backwards, different, side roads as well. So it's just, it's different for each person. But we try to let them know, as a collective, some of the experiences, depending on who your tour guide is. For myself, I talk about my parents and what they went through, aunties, uncles, as well as I'm also married to, I'm a wife of a residential school survivor. So he went to school in Alberta, and so he, like my father, doesn't talk to his children about that experience. And just we try not to allow the people to walk away with any blame or shame. And we don't blame or shame anybody for not knowing. It's just, this is what happened. And, have a nice debrief with them before we send them on a tour of the building with our tour guides.
Is there a teaching, a memory, or a message you carry close to your heart, something that continues to guide you in your work from your parents?
From my parents, it was always, be proud of who you are and where you come from. And so I always hold that near and dear to my heart, remembering the community, the place, the people, my family, who I come from, my language, those little bits of those teachings when I was growing up, so those always stay with me. And having that pride in who I am as a Ktunaxa Pashki, as a Ktunaxa woman.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate your time and your presence, and thank you for welcoming me here. What's happening here at St. Eugene is a living example of resilience, a place where pain has been met with purpose and where culture and community continue to thrive. Whether through education, hospitality, or history, the message is clear. The past will not be forgotten, and the future is being shaped with intention. I'm honored to have spent time here, and I carry these stories with gratitude and respect. Until next time, I'm Zara Durrani, and I'll see you on Location, brought to you with the support of TELUS STORYHIVE.